Everybody, Chris Webster here to talk about one of the latest supporters to the Archaeology Podcast Network, The Motley Fool. Now, I've been investing in the stock market through various applications for a few years now, and everybody who's listening to this can benefit from that sort of investment for the long-term financial planning. And also, I know the hosts of these podcasts can benefit because as archaeologists, like none of us get retirement. We all have to kind of fend for ourselves. So investing in the stock market is a good idea, but not everybody can do it. And look, we get it. The market is complicated and confusing, and to many of us, it simply doesn't make sense. In fact, where do you even start? Take all of the guesswork out of it with the Motley Fool Stock Advisor. The Motley Fool has been around for over 25 years and has been spot on in recommending some of the world's most important companies before they hit the big time. I'm talking about Amazon, Tesla, Netflix, Starbucks, all before they exploded in value. With their easy to use and super informative service, Stock Advisor, you could join the ranks before they potentially find the next big thing. After all, their average stock recommendation is up over 400% as of April 10th, 2023. And no need to be intimidated by financial jargon or market complexities. As the name suggests, these guys don't take themselves too seriously. Now, finances, that's a different story. Their friendly and relaxed approach has helped over 700,000 people move closer to financial independence, all while beating the market and having fun. New members can access Stock Advisor for only $89 for their first year, a full $110 off the full list price. Don't sit on the sidelines and think about what could have happened. Visit fool.com/APN to start your investing journey today. That's $110 discount off of $199 per year list price. Membership will renew annually at the then current list price. So again, check the link in the show notes of this episode.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Archaeology Show. TAS goes behind the headlines to bring you the real stories about archaeology and the history around us. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Archaeology Show, episode 276.
On today's show, we talk about early humans hunting big game and Neanderthals hunting small game.
Let's dig a little deeper. Big animals.
Well, that was lame.
Welcome to the Archaeology Show.
Hello.
All right, so we are still in Acadia National Park.
We are. It's so gorgeous here. I just love it so much.
Yeah.
I love being in the woods alone.
I know. And shout out to the people that wrote to us this last week who may have seen us. I don't think they did, but and I think I wrote back to them actually, and I didn't tell you this. I told you I wrote back to them. Yeah. Because they said, "Oh, we saw you in Loop B," and I was like, "Oh." Because they said, I saw you in Loop B and we saw a rig with Starlink, and I was like, well, we didn't even put out our Starlink except for yesterday we did, because for some reason our T-Mobile after 5 days just like stopped working.
Yeah, that's T-Mobile for you.
I know, everything seems to be fine today.
Yeah.
But then I wrote back to him and I realized I wrote back, oh, I think we're in Loop A, actually. I don't know what loop we're in. I don't know where we're at. We're actually are in Loop B.
We're in Loop B. Yeah. We're in spot 1 in Loop B.
Yeah, spot 1.
By the time this comes out, we'll be gone from that spot.
Yeah.
So don't come trying to find us.
Yeah.
Or do, I guess, and maybe make some new friends. I don't know.
So, we're B1 is actually, you don't get a lot of traffic over here because there's only 5 spots that are accessible through this little side loop of Loop B.
Yeah. So, and we're like on the edge because it's like this pull out spot, and we just have nothing but woods on the other side of our campground, and
super
I don't
quiet.
know, it's just so quiet and it's so pretty, and I do wish we were a little bit closer to the coast, because that's the draw of this side of Acadia is that you have this beautiful rocky coastline all the way around Schoodic Point, it's called. And we're not that close to it. Like we are on our bikes. We can hop on and be there in 5 minutes or car even quicker. But I kind of wish I could just like walk there from my camp spot.
Well, Schoodic Point's a little further by bike.
The point is, but you can like get out towards the water pretty quickly from here. Yeah,
I know. I did a bike ride on my e-bike the other day. It was intended to be like more of a workout ride. Mm-hmm. It's hard to do a workout ride on an e-bike.
It is.
But if you take down the pedal assist, you don't really want to go all the way down to 0 unless you really want to work out. The bike weighs 70 pounds.
It's too heavy.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a hell of a workout. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a little bit too much stress on the bike. They're not really designed for that. Like the pedals and stuff, unless you really upgrade all that stuff, you'll just wreck them. Yeah. So you really need it kind of on pedal assist 1. But if you're going to do a workout on an e-bike ride, you just focus on kind of high cadence. So you keep your gears low. You just keep them on like 2, 3, 4, so your pedal cadence is high and your heart rate is high, high speed, all that stuff. And I did that. I didn't charge up our batteries from the last time we used it. I picked the one with the highest charge because we had our batteries disconnected, and I ran out of power, and my e-bike had 2 bars of 5, and I was like, I got plenty. When near the end of the ride, and I was coming across the island, or this not island, the area here.
Yeah, the point.
Yeah. And it was like the hilliest part, and the whole thing just
Battery
went down to
out.
0. But it went into this crazy low power mode where I still had like a half, like the lowest amount of pedal assist.
Yeah.
And I was just like cranking this bike up these hills because it was almost no pedal assist.
So I think I know this isn't the electric biking podcast, but just to like talk about it a little bit more. So this is our second type of e-bike that we've had, because our first ones were stolen off of our RV last year when we were in Vegas.
Thanks, Vegas.
Yeah. We had Rad e-bikes, which are a really great brand, and we loved those bikes, but they're very expensive, and we replaced them with some slightly cheaper ones, right?
I was actually going for just bigger, more durable.
Yes, they have fat tires. These ones seem like they would be really good for the kind of touring bike riding that we like to do. It's TST is the brand.
Yeah.
But there's things about this brand that are just not as good. So I think like do your research is the thing that we would say about buying an e-bike, because they're all very expensive. Like there's not a cheap one, not really. And just do your research and make sure you like it, because like the battery life on these ones, you should have been able to do that entire ride that you did in addition to the one we did on Sunday with one full battery charge, and they were full when we started Sunday. So the fact that you couldn't is just like
it's a little
disappointing on the battery life for sure. So
all right, well, that was a preview of our upcoming RVing podcast. So
it totally was.
Now, let's go back to big animals and the humans that love to eat them.
Yeah.
That's the title of our podcast. So this first article titled 13,600-year-old prehistoric mammal found preserved in an Iowa creek. And I found this in the Miami Herald, but when you start looking, it's kind of everywhere. But it was really not a paper. It was published on the, I think the Iowa Archaeology,
like their social media,
their Facebook page.
Yeah, I see a Facebook post and I see like a YouTube link, I think. Yeah.
They were just kind of reporting on news.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a paper.
Yeah. They probably will write it up, but this is, this falls into that category of like press release type of stuff that we cover sometimes, which is just as fun and interesting as the official peer reviewed stuff. So,
So what they found was a mastodon, which is not an interchangeable word with mammoth. They are separate animals.
They are different.
Yeah. But the excavation was from the banks of a creek in Wayne County, Iowa, which is about 80 miles east or west. I didn't write it down, but it's 80 miles away from Des Moines.
Yes.
I can't remember what direction it is. South. Oh, okay.
80 miles south.
Sure. It was eroding out of the banks of a creek, and it took about 12 days to excavate this final part. And it was mostly the skull they were working on.
12 days for one skull. That's crazy.
Oh, you see
gigantic.
The pictures. Yeah, the pictures. Because the Facebook post it's an open page, so you don't have to like join it. You just click on the link.
I don't think when I was reading the article, I realized that was like just the skull.
Oh yeah. And you look at the tusks.
Yeah. I totally see it now. Gosh, it's huge. And the people standing nearby are a great scale. So you can see how freaking gigantic it is.
Yeah. They've already done some radiocarbon dating on this, and you'll find out why in a minute here. And it's come back at 13,600 years. So that's...
I love that time period.
Yeah.
Because that's like right in your Clovis time period. It's when... the peopling of North America was beginning. So
the weather was good. It was nice and cool.
Well, I don't know if it was good, but it was getting better.
Like there was a George R.R. Martin wall, like right up there, just north of Iowa.
Yeah, basically. Right.
So,
So this is a really cool time period in North America, and they haven't had a chance to do detailed analysis to see if there's, any human activity on the bones, such as cut marks or whatever. But I'm sure they're definitely going to do that and see if they can find anything. Because, they're right in that time frame where there could be some early North American human activity.
Right. The interesting thing is this is actually first discovered in 2022, and they have been actually pulling bones out of this thing ever since. Right?
Oh, okay.
It's just been a really slow process. I mean, there's not a lot of funding involved. It's The other interesting thing is there has been no human-related artifacts found. Like this is,
Yeah.
We say that archaeologists don't dig dinosaurs, and that's actually true, but we will dig stuff we think humans may have touched.
Yes.
Right? And this isn't a dinosaur.
It's not a dinosaur.
But humans have been well known, we'll talk about this in a bit, to have, cavorted with mastodons,
Yes.
right? So we think, hey, there could be human stuff here.
Yeah.
So call in the archaeologists, right?
Exactly.
Like who else are you going to call?
Right.
So,
and it's like we said, it's the right time frame. So it would be silly not to at least look for human activity. But the fact that there's no artifacts around it makes me think that like cut marks or anything like that, it's probably not gonna happen. But you never know. You never know until you look, right?
Yeah, I mean, mastodons, I guess they can't just die of natural causes, or they could have been taken down by other animals, a saber-toothed tiger or something like that. So I don't know if they actually did that, come to think of it, but maybe a sick old mastodon.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously animals die, right? Like they don't live forever. So, and every once in a while, a natural death could happen someplace where it'll preserve like this. Because you do need very special conditions to even have the bones preserved like this, right? Like it didn't always happen. So, yeah. Yeah.
I don't think in 4 years of RVing, we've ever driven through Iowa, but
no, we have. Doesn't 80 go through Iowa? And we've done 80 all the way across.
Does 80 go through Iowa? It goes through Ohio.
Yes, and Chicago, and then it swoops kind of southwest out of Chicago, I think.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But either way,
I could clear this up very easily by looking at a map, but
we're not gonna
I'm not going to do that right now.
No, that's research beyond our means right now. So anyway, we don't like stop in Iowa. I was kind of look at the corn. Okay, we're gone.
Yeah, we haven't spent time there for sure.
I know. I used to hate going to, sorry, Iowans, but I used to hate going to Iowa. I had to drive north and south between North Dakota and like Oklahoma a couple times when I was moving there. Back over 20 years ago. And the crappy thing about Iowa, I think it was I-29. It was at least I-29 when you got to North Dakota. I don't know if it was all the way. But Iowa dropped to 55 miles per hour on the interstate.
No.
I don't know if it still does. But it was like, oh my God.
That's the worst. That's like crossing into Oregon and losing 10 miles per hour.
Oh my God. Yeah. So anyway, the remains will be at the Prairie Trails Museum in Corydon, Iowa. So now let's have some mastodon facts.
Yes.
The mastodon lived right at the end of the Pleistocene when mastodons went extinct about 13,000 years ago. Now, I pulled that fact from the woman who wrote this article.
Yeah.
She wrote that down, and that's not an accurate fact.
Oh, it's not?
No, it's an average fact. On average, they went extinct about 13,000. When you talk about an animal going extinct is a final word.
It is.
And that's not real.
Yeah.
So let's just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Around 13,000 years ago, there were no more mastodons
But there could have been some that lived.
Well, we're about to find out.
Longer.
Yeah, there were definitely more that lived longer.
Yeah. Okay.
So, like a lot longer.
Yeah, probably in the northern areas where the climate was more conducive to the big old furry animals, right?
Sure. Yeah. They grew up to 10 feet tall and weighed as much as 6 tons. So that's a lot. They lived all across North America, from Alaska to Mexico. So they were very adaptable to many different environments, which, climate change is being attributed more and more to the mega-fauna die-off of the end of the Pleistocene. Why we don't have all those. People are saying, oh, was it the humans that actually killed all these and contributed to their extinction? I mean, I think, yes, humans in part. Humans probably did in part.
Yeah.
But as we learn more about climate change, they're saying, well, more and more climate change. But if you've got an animal that is adapted to the entire continent and all the seasons the continent has to throw at it, including the end of the Ice Age, I'm like, okay. I mean, sure, Mexico lived through the Pleistocene, right? But Mexico didn't really have the kind of Pleistocene environment that North America did, right? That North America did, right? So if a mastodon can live down there and a mastodon can live in Alaska, you figure a mastodon can live through a climate change.
Yeah,
right?
You would think so.
I'm just like, what the hell's going on here? It must have been humans. And
in part, but also like they have to eat, right? So that the Ice Age and the changing climate was affecting their resources. So,
for sure.
So that might have.
I mean, it was a whole suite of things, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just sad. So I just want them to be around.
Cool? I want an alternate history where they didn't go extinct and they're just like walking around in the forest.
I know. I hope we can just like bring them back. So, I mean, there are talks of that because preserved in the northern Arctic regions of Scandinavia.
Preserved in amber.
Not amber, just preserved in the tundra. Not even joking. It's not amber, Jurassic Park, but just preserved in the tundra. Yeah. They've got potentially viable mammoth DNA.
Yeah, they've started trying to do that, extract it from various things that they found.
It's just ethical reasons why people haven't tried to bring them back.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about doing that and what it could do to like the ecology of places. I know. Yeah.
But anyway, like I said earlier, mastodons are not mammoths, and mastodons are distant cousins of mammoths and elephants. From what I understand, mammoths are closer to elephants than mastodons are, but they're all still three distinct animals, right? So just some other important human mastodon sites.
Right.
Let's just name a few of them.
Yeah. So the Manus mastodon site is in Florida and from about 12,000 years ago.
Not 13,000.
Not 13,000, but that's further south, right? So like kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And they found mastodon bones there that had cut marks on them and also stone tools. So very clearly, a human, I guess, kill site or attempt to kill site. I guess we don't.
Right.
I guess they killed it. Probably. They must have, right?
Cut marks and stone tools.
Yeah. I mean, at
least they came upon the mastodon.
They lopped off a leg or something at least, right?
Humans were probly very opportunistic back then too.
They probably were.
Yeah. You come upon a fresh mammoth kill.
Yeah.
As soon as a saber-toothed tiger gets his fill, which, they're going to eat pretty quick and be full.
Yeah.
And then probably wander away. So anyway, the most famous one is probably Blackwater Draw in New Mexico.
Yeah.
This is Clovis, New Mexico, which is the type site for the Clovis Point. That's where it gets its name.
Oh, so it's from this mastodon site?
Yeah.
The Clovis. Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't know that the Clovis were named in conjunction with also mastodon bones.
That's
cool.
11,000 years ago, stone tools and projectile points. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Then there's the Kimball site in Colorado. This one is 10,000 years ago, so even sooner.
Yeah.
And again, we have stone tools and spear points. So.
Yeah. Do you want to do the last one?
No, I don't want to do the last one. In fact, I'm not sure why that one's on the list. If I had read all of your notes, I would have seen that on the list and probably deleted it.
And of course, we have Cerruti.
We do not have Cerruti. Why is this an ongoing argument? No, that did not happen. You even put ha in your notes. And you just put that in there to make me get mad, didn't you? Okay, so for those who aren't familiar with the Cerruti site, it's garbage. Look it up. It's not real.
Yes.
That's that.
Anyway.
Chris disagrees. He likes to leave all doors open. The man will never shut a door.
No, I'm just saying. They're fossilized mammoth bones. And
lots of pieces of rock around them. With lots of pieces of rock that were not touched by human people. Anyway, moving on from that.
Right. So anyway, the 13,000 years ago for extinction isn't quite right. Extinction was just the wrong word to use. Yeah. Right. They started to die off at the end of the Pleistocene for sure. Yeah. There was probably a lot fewer of them.
They began going extinct, but they weren't fully extinct.
I don't know if we'll ever know exactly when they went extinct.
How could you know when the last version of an animal died?
I mean, we might find a mastodon site that dates to 9,000 years ago. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But it's just going to be more rare and more rare to find them.
Yeah.
And all we can say is, when was the last one we have conclusive dated evidence to? We're going to put the extinction date there, and then if we find another one, now that's the extinction date, and now that's the extinction date. Yep. So it's just, that's all you can do, really.
Yep.
So anyway. All right. Well, on the other side of the break, let's find out exactly how they took these big guys down. Back in a minute. Welcome back to episode 276 of this mammoth of a show.
Oh, it is a mammoth of a show because we're definitely prattling on a little bit, but this stuff is fun to talk about. So yeah.
And I like it when I can theme out a show. When we can find a theme.
Yeah.
I mean, the third article is a little bit of a stretch.
It's a bit of a stretch, but that's all right. We'll get there.
All right. So this next article is from earth.com. Although on my notes it says urch.com. I'm not really sure what urch is.
And it linked it too. Like, it's a real link. I wonder where that goes. Don't open it. Don't do it.
So earth.com, although it was reported in Newsweek and a bunch of other places.
Yeah.
And also for the last one was just like Facebook, but for the next two articles, we actually have the original article linked as well. And they're both open source, which is really good. So you can actually go read them.
This one is from a PLOS One article, I think, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So this is regarding a new theory to explain how early humans not only sharpened Clovis points used sharpened Clovis points, but how the actual techniques they use to hunt megafauna and take down animals like mastodons and mammoths.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, like throwing a spear, that just seems like it's not, I don't know. That's what they do in the movies, right? But like, did they really do that in real life? Was that right. a reliable way to bring down a mammoth? I don't know.
People have often thought that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Clovis points, they tend to be longer.
Yes.
They can be short.
Yeah. They're wider, you know.
Yeah. They're sharp they're very long and sharp.
Yeah.
They can be long, like I said, and sharp on both sides. If you hit just right, and they're thin too, so they could like go between ribs and things like that. But imagine the space between the ribs of a mastodon, or like you could stick your fist in there probably.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you hit it hard enough, even with that thick hide and these sharp points, and you've got the right sharpness on there, I mean, you probably could get in, but how deep is it going to go really?
Yeah. And like,
it's going to stop fast.
How many times do you have to hit the mastodon with a spear like this before you take it down, if you're just throwing it like that, right?
I just have an image of a mastodon or a mammoth running around like a pincushion with 80 spear tips in it.
Right, totally. And like, these beautiful Clovis points, they take so much time to make. And are you going to stand there and throw it and just hope that this thing that you spent probably days creating doesn't crack in half because you hit a rib instead of getting it between the ribs or whatever? It just, when you start thinking about the actual logistics of taking down a big animal by throwing sharp rocks at it, like it just gets a little overwhelming. So what's cool about this article is that they have sort of a different take on what they might have been doing.
Yes. So the archaeologists in this research drew from various historical writings and artwork from around the world. So they were looking at other ways people around the world have taken down bigger animals and things like that, and said, what have people done and what has worked?
Yeah.
And instead of throwing spears or jabbing, they said, well, people seem to have braced these spears against the ground, maybe longer spears even, right?
Yeah.
Brace them against the ground and just have the animal run itself into these spears, whether somebody's scaring it from behind, and causing a disturbance. I don't really know. They would have to do something like that, right? Yeah. And causing it to run in the direction of, a group of hunters or something who are probably the bravest people you've ever seen.
I know. Can you imagine and that's where I get skeptical of this idea that you have like 5 hunters standing in a row, bracing spears, ready for this 10 foot tall?
Yeah.
That was like animal just charging you.
Yeah.
But the thing in its favor is that the animal's own force would drive the spear deep inside its body, creating a massive wound, and it would be much more severe than just like our wimpy little human muscle arms could deliver. Yeah,
we might be able to penetrate the hide, but it's not going to go very deep.
Exactly. So it'll cause a lot more damage, but God, so much more dangerous, so much more terrifying. I still have a little bit of skepticism just from that, but also maybe because I would not be doing it. Right. This would not be my job.
They call this hunting with planted spears. And I guess when you do that, the spear becomes less of a spear and more of a pike. They use that word in the article a lot.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder. I'm sorry, I'm going off track right now. Yeah. I didn't read your notes. I read the article, but not your notes. So I don't know what direction you're wanting to take this, but
wow.
But could they have created a way to just like plant them in the ground without having to have a human standing there holding it? That to take the danger of the mammoth stampeding towards you?
I mean, they would have to have had pretty good construction techniques to be able to do that. But then, the mammoth is probably not going to angrily charge at a wooden structure, right? Or something like that. It's going to angrily charge a human.
Yeah.
If you're agitating it.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Okay. That thought popped in my head. I just wonder.
So the researchers here at UC Berkeley, actually, led by Scott Byram from the Archaeological Research Facility, did experimental archaeology to study how Clovis points would react to the force of an approaching animal when using this technique. That's one thing they wanted to know. They're like, okay, so if we did this, what's a Clovis point going to do, right?
Yeah. Can the point handle it? What kind of damage would it do? All that kind of stuff. Experimental archaeology.
I know, right?
I love it.
It's super fun.
Yeah.
And like I said, the article's open source and you can see a lot of their images and just like how they did it. So it's really neat.
Yeah, because obviously they weren't like practicing on elephants or anything. Like
no.
that would not be, that would not fly in any corner of the world, I don't think. So,
but wait till the end of the segment to find out what they're doing next.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway, they found that using this technique made the spear tip behave like a hollow point bullet.
Which is crazy.
I know. And what a hollow point bullet does is it basically leaves kind of a small entrance wound, but then just like rips it out the other side. Now, I don't think their spear tips are going out the other side.
Yeah.
Depends on where it hits the animal, because that would be a long shaft, but it could.
Yeah.
But it basically just goes in and then just wreaks havoc on the inside as it's going
just
through,
dragging through all the organs, the muscle, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it caused massive amount of damage in, anything from mastodons, bison, saber-toothed cats, whatever you want to take down.
I'm curious because I think one of the things that hollow point bullets do, my information all comes from True Crime Podcast, so, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't they like sort of break apart inside the body? And so that's why they do so much damage.
I don't know if hollow points are designed to break apart. Maybe they do. I'm not really sure. They could shrapnel themselves and blow out the other side.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that's what these spears did. They didn't really specify if the spear would actually break into pieces.
Well, it'd be
once it entered the
wooden shaft could. The point could as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like intended to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just takes me down this like archaeological path. I'm like, well, if they'd find that these spears break into pieces when they enter their test material, then maybe they can start looking for spear points that are broken in a similar manner around these mastodon sites that we already have to sort of add evidence to what they're doing, archaeological evidence, not just experimental archaeology. So anyway.
Well, that's one nice thing about experimental archaeology is if you find out what's going on in your experimental archaeology, you can start looking for the evidence in the archaeological record.
Yeah. Like this over here, this site looks exactly like what we did with this experiment. That's my favorite part. That's so cool.
One thing, if you're reading this article, and I don't know if they actually mentioned this in the paper. I didn't read the entire paper, but they mentioned this in the article, and they may have just tried to find something to help explain some things. But they said that Clovis points first found in New Mexico, which that's where they were typed, not first found. I guess they were first found there, but they were made from rocks like chert, flint, or jasper. Now, that's not strictly true.
Yeah. And to anybody who's not a trained archaeologist, those words sound fine, right?
Yeah.
They're
all kind of the same thing.
But they are. And if you look at the picture where those words are right above, the ones in the picture are actually obsidian and chert. That first one is obsidian, clearly.
It looks like obsidian. It's black.
If you zoom in on it, you can see the edges are translucent.
Okay.
It's 100% obsidian. Yeah. So they used obsidian a lot in North America. Anyway, we just would like to ask journalists to use those words correctly and cautiously, because flint and jasper are types of chert. All of these things are chert. So
they're crystalline silicates technically, which is a kind of quartz.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but they're all just different names for a sedimentary type of rock.
Like jasper is called jasper when it's kind of orangey. Flint is flint when it's kind of dark. I think there's a green one, a word for green ones. So anyway,
So just take that phrase with a grain of salt.
Yeah. That's just journalism for you. I guess we can't really knock them too much for it.
Yeah. Clovis points in general range in size from anywhere from the size of about your thumb up to about 5 inches in length, have very sharp edges. And one of their defining characteristics is the fluted indentations on both sides. And by fluted, I mean there's one massive, what we call a flake scar, taken off of either side. And this was so you could, if you imagine a wooden shaft, and I've got my hands in a very compromising position right now. If you imagine a wooden shaft with a split down the middle of it, you would take this Clovis point and just basically jam it down that wooden shaft into the middle there. And the fluted indentation would just make that just kind of sit right in there. Yeah. And then they would wrap a bunch of sinew and stuff around it to make it sit. And that actually, when they first found Clovis points, a lot of the research for decades was trying to figure out how to even make that flute. And because the power and force required from a flint knapping standpoint, which is flint knapping is the science and technique of actually creating projectile points and stone tools. Just the technique of how to actually do that, people didn't know how to do. Yeah. They were like, how in the hell did they actually do this?
And even now with like people who have figured it out, experts that have done expert flint knappers can do it. But I remember talking to our friend about it who was a flint knapper, and he was saying that it's a 50-50 shot each time. Like it might work and create a beautiful flute, or it might crack in half and you have to start all over. So
yeah, because here's the thing: you make most of the point, almost all the point. That's like one of the last things you do.
It's one of the last things.
Yeah,
you could ruin the whole thing. So good luck.
Imagine that's when the phrase "son of a bitch" was first invented.
Right. Oh gosh, to have all that work, just like, but I bet they got fast at it though, when they're doing these to survive and all the time they have to make these points.
Yeah. Some of these have been found actually embedded and preserved in mammoth skeletons. So it's been pretty cool.
That's another thing that they could look at, right? If they really think this like plant pike, what do they call it? The pike planting method? Planted spears. If they think that that is a viable way that they killed mammoths and mastodons, and maybe they can look at where these Clovis points are embedded in the preserved skeletons that we have. Because if they're on the top of the mammoth, then maybe not so much. That would have come from lobbing it from somewhere far away, right? But if they're up underneath the mammoth, which is kind of where you'd have to aim anyway, even if you were throwing it. But if they're up, I bet angles and up underneath, they might be able to tell if they were planted as opposed to thrown.
Good observation. Yeah. So speaking to your point earlier about how they would have maybe actually planted these spears, Byram's team feels that the Clovis point and spear were just part of a larger hunting system, and many of the elements of that system would not have survived the ravages of time.
Missing majority.
Exactly. Yep. So some of the things that either maybe missing or misinterpreted would have been bone shafts, so other elements of the spear shaft itself, wooden spear bases, so something to actually plant the spear in. Oh yeah, because just their hands holding it to the ground probably wouldn't be enough, right? Might not be. Yeah. Bindings made of pine, pitch, and lacing, because a lot of times most of the time you don't even find the spear itself. Right. You just find the point. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Anyway, take a look at the linked article and the experimental techniques they use. The article I actually linked to actually does a really good job about going a lot more into the experimental archaeology at the end there. I just wanted to kind of overview it here on what they did, but they do a lot more. They have some pictures. But then again, they link directly to the experimental archaeology article on PLOS One. So you can take a look at that as well. Yeah, there's some really great photos there, and just to see how they were doing this, because it is really neat. Because obviously they're creating animal-like objects to test on, because you can't test this on real animals, obviously. So, And one of our hosts on the Archaeology Podcast Network is actually a professor at UC Berkeley in the anthropology department. He is indeed. And I want to see... Oh, we're going to get him on the show at some point for an interview, too. We are. And I want to see if maybe he can hook us up with an interview with Scott Byram, because one of the things that they plan to do here is... as their next step is to construct a replica mammoth, which I want to see, especially if they're going to do it on like the streets of Berkeley. I don't really know where they're going to do this to continue their testing, because they want to test it. Because that's another thing they said. They want to test this spear with like a full charging mammoth. So what I want to see is a full weighted sized mammoth on like wheels with grad students pushing it and like other grad students sitting there with spears, like with this mammoth charging them. I don't think grad students could push it fast enough. They need it to be on like I don't think they moved that fast. They're mammoths. I don't know. I mean, they probably moved at a pretty good clip. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I don't think they moved like faster than, say, grad students can push a mammoth. Or maybe they'll have to put it on a car, like push it behind with a car. They need to get Mythbusters involved. I just need to see it. I need to see it. So I need to actually see this. Yeah. Yeah, I might have to fly to California. It sounds this experimental archaeology sounds really amazing though, and they're doing such cool work on something that we'll honestly never know the actual answer to probably. But it is really great to have other options, because the idea of a person standing there throwing a spear towards a mammoth, when you really think about it, kind of doesn't make sense. So having a more organized idea behind how they did it is really cool. So I love this work. All right. Well, on the other side of the break, we're going to find out that Neanderthals weren't that stupid after all. Back in a minute. Welcome back to the third and final segment of episode 276, Big Animals and the Humans That Love to Eat Them. So this is kind of the opposite of that, maybe a little bit, but yes, but that's okay. Right. So I found this article first, and I was really trying to hunt for another big animals type article, and I really couldn't find one. Right. And I saw this one about Neanderthals, and I clicked into it because Neanderthals famously did hunt big animals. Yes. So I clicked into it, and I got a little bit lucky in that big animals were mentioned but it really wasn't about big animals.
It really wasn't, but that's okay.
Weird thing is, and I don't think we've ever reported on an article from here, but I found it was from Men's Journal. And I'm like, come on, Men's Journal. What are you doing? Stay in your lane. But anyway, they, to their credit, linked to the Science Direct article, which I also linked to.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Which is open source.
And I did not find this article. You did. And I read the title and I was like, new archaeological discoveries challenge widely held beliefs about Neanderthals. And in my brain, I was like, where have I heard that before? I've heard that before. That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wait. Every article that has come out about Neanderthals in the last year or two has had some version of that headline, because it's like the thing right now for researchers is to find out that Neanderthals weren't as stupid. They just weren't as caveman-y they just weren't as we thought. So it's another version of that.
Weren't as caveman-y. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt.
Maybe that should be the title of this episode.
Yep. I want that on my headstone. Wasn't as caveman-y. Maybe I am. Anyway. So dig in Spain at Abric Pizarro with researchers from the Australian National University found hundreds of thousands of artifacts that challenge this assumption that we're talking about here.
Yep.
Abric Pizarro, just to place it in space here, is in the southern Pyrenees of Spain, where there are many caves and rock structures where many Neanderthal remains have been found before. So lots of Neanderthals lived in this area, France, Spain, that whole area.
Yes.
Neanderthals were all over it.
That's where all the big news about Neanderthals comes from, it seems like.
Yeah. The site itself dates from about 100,000 to 65,000 years ago.
Did they say how they're dating the site?
No, they really get into it. And I didn't read the article. It wasn't really the point of the article.
Okay. Yeah. It's just an established date, basically. Yeah.
Some of the artifacts discovered included stone tools and animal bones. But like I said, many, 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 many artifacts.
Yeah.
But the ones that are really kind of important to this article really are just the stone tools and the animal bones found because of the types of stone tools and the types of animal bones found. Right. So like you said, it's a long-held belief that Neanderthals were poor hunters and weren't that smart.
Yeah.
So they're looking for the big animals, that might be a little slower.
Getting lucky with a good shot at a big animal, and that would hold them over for a while till they had to go try their luck again. Basically. Yeah. I think that's sort of the perception in the past. Yeah, getting a few of the guys together and dragging a bison into the cave. You got a bison in one hand and your lady's hair in the other hand, and you're dragging them both into the cave. Oh my God. None of that is true.
I know.
Well, I guess it probably could have been true, but it wasn't the only thing they were doing.
The tools and the bones indicated that the Neanderthals were able to quickly adapt to changing environments and create weapons for hunting specific animals. And the way that this really did this was because the animal bones displayed cut marks, right? So it indicated that the animals just didn't want it in there and die. Right. The animals were being processed by Neanderthals, right? Yeah. And the animals they found, so some of the bigger ones that we know that Neanderthals ate, when we have good evidence of, red deer, horses, bison, those are some of the big ones. Yep. There is evidence, of course, that they took down much bigger animals, mammoths, mastodons, things like that. And that's well established. But they also found freshwater turtles, rabbits, and they found the projectile points to match. Yeah. So smaller ones, bigger ones, and they're like, oh, so these guys just knew how to make all kinds of tools. Yeah. And all these. My question for this article though is, how is this the first time we're seeing this?
Yeah, why is this new information? They must have found smaller tools before. What did they think they were doing with them?
I don't really know.
That is.
It doesn't really go into it here.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of Neanderthal sites, and it is really interesting to me how this is the first time that small animal bones with cut marks and small projectile points have been found in association also with Neanderthals and also with large animal bones with cut marks and large projectile points.
I suppose having all of that together in one site is probably pretty unique, but it feels like you should have had some components of that in other places. And maybe it just wasn't enough to put the full picture together, and that this site has the full picture, but it is surprising for sure. Yeah. And obviously, they have to eat, and you can't always get a big deer or a bison or whatever. So it makes sense that they would figure out how to hunt the smaller rabbits. The turtles would be really easy because they don't even move that fast. You don't even need a tool to take down a turtle. Yeah. I could take down a turtle, and
they bite.
That's fine. I'm a lot bigger. I could figure it out if I had to. Right. And it's getting into the turtle. Maybe that would be the problem. And they needed tools for that. Right. So, yeah, It just seems logical to me. Neanderthals weren't that dumb. They figured it out.
Right. You know something about turtles?
What?
And I don't know if they would have hit upon this or not, because they wouldn't have needed to necessarily. And these were freshwater turtles, very different than the turtles I'm about to talk about. But I'm listening to the ebook In the Heart of the Sea by Nathaniel. I can't remember who it is, but it's about the whaling ship Essex, which is a very famous ship that went down. And it was
You were inspired by New Bedford, weren't you?
I was indeed. And I'm pretty sure I've read it before. I just didn't remember it.
Yeah.
But I was listening to it while we drive and stuff like that. And the takedown of the whaling ship Essex by this huge sperm whale with a vendetta is the inspiration for Moby Dick. But this book starts where that takedown happens, and it's really the story of the crew that crewed the ship, but it's the story of after the ship basically gets hit by this whale and their story of getting home and the horribleness that happened after that. But the point is, leading up to that point, they hit the Galapagos and some other places around there to kind of reprovision. One of the things that the whaling ships did, they would take on, literally 1,000 turtles onto the ship.
Really?
1,000, like big, huge turtles. They would strap
like
a
sea
turtle.
turtles.
They would strap a live turtle to their back because you can only carry one because they were really heavy and really big. And these leatherback turtles, right? That some of them that have lived for 100+ years, right? They didn't know that. They didn't care.
Yeah.
Well, there were lore of turtles being around for a long time, but they would strap these things and take them on because guess what? A turtle, it turns out, could live on one of these ships without food or water for up to a year.
How? That's crazy.
Yeah, and they were like, there was talk of, we're pretty sure it doesn't suffer until it's killed, right? And other people were like, not so sure about that. Oh my God,
that's insane.
Yeah, so I wonder if early humans and Neanderthals that did eat turtles would find out that they were a good kind of food to just shove over in the corner, and you didn't really have to maintain it, and it just never died.
Yeah.
And it just was like always there until you needed it. You know what I mean? I wonder when people hit on that fact.
Yeah, that is an interesting question because we know humans have eaten turtles for a really long time.
For a long time.
We found turtle shell in Miami when we were excavating
from
there.
Thousands of years ago.
Yeah. So turtles are a very good source of food. But yeah, I never thought about the fact that you could just like create a little cage for them basically, and they would just live there.
And again, these were the big leatherback turtles that were saltwater turtles.
Yeah.
And I don't know if these little freshwater turtles had the same attributes.
Yeah, I
really don't know.
I don't know.
So, but it's just crazy to me that they said they could live up to a year. They were just like wandering around the ship.
That is crazy.
But they would lick everything too.
They probably found stuff to eat and they just didn't realize it.
Oh, I don't know. There was nothing to eat on that ship. But then again, the whole ship, like when they were processing a whale, was just like full of gross whale oil and blubber and all that kind of stuff. And it was
sounds awful.
And there's turtles just like wandering around everywhere because they didn't like pen them up.
Yeah.
They're just everywhere. And they would just like butcher one up when they needed to eat one.
Gross.
Yeah. So it's pretty.
You know what? If I were to go back in time, going onto a ship of any sort is not on my list. Everything we learned when we were in Massachusetts, no, I'm not interested in any early shipping activity.
You better like a sandwich made of hardtack, salted meats and turtle.
No, I don't like small places. I don't want to be, no.
You know, the weird thing is, it sounds like they didn't do a whole lot of fishing, except for whales.
I guess fishing rods and fishing lines hadn't so much been invented yet, maybe?
Well, no, prehistoric people have been fishing forever.
Yeah, but not the kind that you could use for like deep sea fishing, like with the big fish, right?
Alaskans would argue with that.
Yeah, they would. That's true.
Pacific Northwesterners would argue with that.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. No thanks. All of that. Okay, well that went tangenty real quick, but
the point is people are adaptable.
Yes.
And if you want food,
and so were Neanderthals.
You'll find, and so were Neanderthals.
Neanderthals were much closer to people than we've previously thought, and the news just keeps coming that confirms that. They acted more like, early humans did.
Right.
And we interbred with them, and there's just Neanderthals are just, they're not the cavemen that we thought they were.
I think we need a new driver of evolution. We have natural selection, which is basically genetics. It really is
To
just
some
genetics.
extent, yeah.
It's genetic drift and things like that, right? We have sexual selection, which is basically
choosing
it's choosing
your partner.
It's choosing your partner.
Yeah.
It's saying, oh, I like the person with those traits, and I'm not going to mate with this guy. I'm going to mate with this guy or girl or whatever, right? And that's sexual selection.
Yep.
I think we have hunger selection, right? Like we have people who are, maybe this is an evolutionary trait. I'm not saying that, but it's a developmental trait, right? Hunger selection is driving technology, right? Hunger intuition.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's like, I'm hungry. I'm going to figure something the hell out, and I'm going to figure it out.
I mean, you see it in like a survivalist story, right?
Yeah.
Like half the time when somebody's dropped on a desert island for whatever reason,
Right.
they figure out how to do it and they survive, or they don't, right? So
And the ones that don't,
they die.
don't pass on that information.
Yeah, so it is a version of selection. I mean, I think it still falls into natural selection, maybe, but sure, we can call it hunger selection.
I don't know if it falls into natural selection. I think the people that figure out how to survive by saying, look, I made this smaller tool that'll take down a rabbit.
Yeah.
Or, I invented the bow and arrow. I invented this, I did that. I figured out how to cook this thing, or I figured out how to eat this thing that's not going to make us die. They pass on that information, and now their descendants live longer.
Yeah.
So that really is a form of selection.
It is a form of selection.
It's not sexual. It's not natural.
Yeah.
It's a form of selection.
Yeah, totally.
So anyway, it's hunger selection.
Okay.
I'm going to fix my hunger selection right now.
I think you need to go get a PhD. You just found your topic.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Pretty hungry dude.
Is that going to be your handle?
Pretty hungry dude.
Yeah. Oh, man.
All right.
Okay, you're ridiculous.
It's time for a cheeseburger.
I think it is.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Archaeology Show. Feel free to comment and view the show notes on the website at www.arcpodnet.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at ArcPodNet. Music for this show is called I Wish You Would Look from the band Sea Hero. Again, thanks for listening and have an awesome day. This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV traveling the United States, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, DigTech LLC, Culturo Media, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Rachel Roden.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.arcpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.